Hello again. As you know, I am Eli the computer guy, and this is our last day taping out of Spiceworks headquarters here in Austin, Texas. So I was invited down to Spiceworks headquarters. Spiceworks is the company, they're a startup company. Startup, you know, they just got $57 million in funding. Basically, they do free network management software, free-ish mobile device management software, free community. They do media production and a few other things. And basically, they invited me down for a week to see how they do everything and to talk to their CEO and to talk to their CTO and to talk to their VP of development and talk to their hiring people and today we talked to the VP of products about their community, their online community, and talked to so many people. I've just been talking. So this has been a great time here in Spiceworks, but wow, I am getting to be a tired boy at this point. So if you did not know, if you did not see it this morning, I will put up a link to it later. But I was part of their little video series that they do. Spiceworks not only do these other things, but they also do video series. So they do something called IT Ambush, which I was surprised. They did a very, very, very good job on creating that video, and that was with me and this other guy, Jeff, and we were running around Austin on Segways, asking normal people really stupid IT questions. So we will give you a link to that. And then this morning I was on their hour-long video called Control Alt Tech, which is like an hour-long, I don't know how you explain it, like a Johnny Carson show or something for the tech world. So those things I also did while I was here, and I will put the links somewhere, whether here or on my social networking site or whatever, when I have those links available to you. So yeah, I'm so tired. It's so funny. Like I keep like telling you guys, like the world of technology is awesome, and you get paid for not doing very much work. And then there are just days like this. There are days where I just simply can literally barely see straight, and yet I'm still here working. So when I tell you this job is easy, and you get paid a lot of work for doing a lot for doing a little, I don't know. Sometimes I may be exaggerating that point a little bit. It's a great job. I love doing what I'm doing, but yeah, maybe there is a little bit more work in all this than I give it credit for. But anyways, so basically I'm going to show you the interview that I did just a little while ago with Tabrez, Syed, and he is the Vice President of Products here at Spiceworks. One of the interesting things with him is he was actually the first employee at Spiceworks. So I asked him a couple of questions about the whole idea of being a first employee, and then we talked about their community, how they built their community, ideas around creating their community, so on and so forth. Again, I do think it is definitely a very good video to watch, and since you're here anyway, stick around and watch it again. Oh boy, Eli is tired. But anyway, let us start watching the interview, because again, like I say, I do think this is a very good interview for you guys to watch, and I think you will learn a lot from it. So today, we're here for yet another day of Spiceworks. So I'm on my fifth day, so this is our fifth and final interview, and we're here with Tabrez Syed, who's Vice President of Products, mainly focused on community here at Spiceworks. And so in the other, we've interviewed a lot of the founders, but I think it more interesting, like everybody knows about founders, and everybody talks about founders, but you were in fact the first employee here, right?
Yeah.
So, again, everybody knows about founders, but how do you become the first employee at a startup?
That's a good question. I get asked this a fair bit. And so my background is, I'm a software developer.
Okay.
I got a degree in computer science. I worked in software engineering jobs my entire life. And I used to work for a company called Motive. And Motive is where Scott Abel, Greg, Francis, Jay, they were all working at Motive at the time. And, most people were kind of transitioning out of Motive at that time, and I know Scott had left, and I figured he'd be starting something else up. Around the time I was also transitioning out, looking for other roles and stuff like that, and I was actually thinking of moving to California. So it was Thanksgiving 2005. I had gone to California, And I flew back, and then I come back and I see this email, and Scott says, "You want to have lunch?" I'm like, okay. And so I go to lunch with him, and he tells me a little bit about this new company. He doesn't tell me what the name is or what they're doing. And I listen to him for a while, and I have no idea what they're going to do. So then I know he's working with Greg, so I go have lunch with Greg, and I'm even more confused than what they're doing. And I was like, I know these guys, and at the least it'll be fun, it'll be interesting. And so I said yes, not knowing what we were going to do, how we're going to do it, or what'll happen. I honestly thought it'd be 2 years, we'll try something interesting, but it's been 8, and I've really enjoyed it.
Now, I noticed that's one thing, like in the whole startup world, in business and life in general, we all talk about relationships. But you guys kind of seem to take that to like an exponential degree. I'm not sure I've ever seen anywhere else. Like every one of the managers and a lot of the employees here, you've all worked together in community. Is that normal, or is that just like is it just Austin is just insanely cool that way?
Well, I think one of it's kind of a little bit of a lottery, right? So if you kind of find people that you enjoy working with, you want to keep doing that if they're into it as well. And so a little bit of that is that kind of aspect. The other is in the Austin area, there are a few good systems management companies, Tivoli and a whole bunch of others that have come up, and so people who work in different spots there kind of circulate around because they have similar backgrounds. Okay. So I started as an intern at Tivoli. I worked for Greg back in '96, and then when Motive started, he sent me a note, an email, and he said, "Hey, we started this new company. Do you want to come apply?" And so it's a little bit like I followed him 4 companies, and I don't know, so many jobs. It's that kind of a thing. But yeah, no, I think it's more of aspiration of who wouldn't want to work with people they like for a long time.
So when you say like you're vice president of products, especially it's been interesting since it has 4 founders, and it's curious to see what people get labeled. Like, what does vice president mean? Does it mean anything functionally, or do they just kind of stamp you with that just so people take you seriously? Is there
I think at Spiceworks, I think the titles are more like you start doing some stuff, and then the title comes later.
Okay.
And I think for me, or at least a kind of functional role, it's just that at some level on the product team, we need a certain set of leaders who can help direct the stuff. And so most companies tend to break the responsibility up by flat hierarchies, right? So there's this product management person who owns all product managers, and there's a dev manager person who owns all dev managers, and there's another group of people who own another whole set. At Spiceworks, we try to be more vertically aligned around the objective. So Greg's probably talked to you a little bit about this, that the teams are smaller, and they own the entire experience. So they think about the customer, so they have to worry about the product, they have to worry about the dev management, they have to worry about getting it out into production, all of that kind of stuff. And so at Spiceworks, we're kind of more organized like that. So basically, you've got Francis who wants all the infrastructure stuff and mobile stuff. So he thinks through everything from usability, thinking about what it means to keep the site up, those kinds of things. I think about community, social stuff a lot. Greg thinks about overall dev stuff and about the app a lot more. So we've taken areas of focus. So that's kind of how it's mostly kind of split up. And then the stuff we kind of have responsibility for kind of ends up going into also some other products and teams as well. So yeah, I think about community a lot, and mostly I'm thinking about the community.spiceworks.com site. But social and community ends up showing itself up in the app, because the app may have a social feature, or it may show itself up in some of the vendor products. Infrastructure is another example. The infrastructure team is responsible for the servers, but without their infrastructure, the community won't work. So the stuff he works on shows up all across the board. So it's a little bit of that. There's like areas of focus, but we all have to work together very closely.
Now, one thing, since you are the first employee, when you have founders and you deal with the startup world, a lot of people give a lot of advice to founders, where even if you adore each other, you go out, you get legal advice, and make sure contracts are written, and there's cliffs and all that kind of stuff. Being the first employee, did you go out and ask for any outside advice? Like when they gave you whatever package they offered it to you, did you go out for any outside advice just to see if it was fair, or did you just say, hey, these guys are awesome, I accept?
I think the one thing to keep in mind is that when you're starting off on a startup, there's no guarantee where it's going to go. So, you may have all of the right stuff figured out, but if the startup doesn't go anywhere, what's the point? And a lot of it comes down to trust, and you know the people, you work with them. and it's the long road, and it'll just work itself out. So I've generally taken that kind of point of view. So I don't think I went out and looked at everything with a fine print to kind of figure it out. But I think knowing the people, they're very fair, and I think that's the approach we take. So it hadn't even occurred to me that I have to kind of double check this stuff. I've worked with these guys for like 16 years now.
Okay, so you guys have a lot of stuff going on now. So you have the network management software, the mobile device management software, you have the community. Then I was surprised to find out your whole video media department is actually pretty significant.
Right.
I didn't even know you really had one, and then I come here and it's like a quarter of the building or something. So I understand. So they started the network management software, and I can understand where you go from network management to mobile device management. I don't really understand how you go to community. Like, where was the decision to really create a community, especially that can now support 5 million users? What was that decision?
I think one thing to think about to kind of frame Spiceworks is that you could frame it from the software perspective, which is a very fair perspective. But one of the objectives we were trying to start with was to simplify the IT guy's life.
Yeah.
And so that was our lens, as opposed to we make kick-ass inventory software, and that's it. And as we started to work with our users, and they started using the software, we had this forum where we would provide support for the software, right? So they would come online, they would talk to each other, talk to us about it, and IT people are generally very helpful, so they help each other, and so they would be in the community answering questions to each other. And then what we found was somebody would come in and say, hey, I noticed from your profile you're in this city or whatever, in the medical industry or something like that. What are you doing for HIPAA compliance for Blob? And that conversation would start. And as we paid attention to, we realized that what they need to simplify their life is access to information from people just like them who've actually solved it before. And there was a need for that. And so we just kind of fast followed that. So a lot of the stuff you'll see at Spiceworks is like, some of it's our ideas. We just said we want to do network management software because we went out in the field, interviewed 1,500 people or whatever, and they said they needed this. And a lot of other things is just we see how people use the software and we go, that's a need. I'll give you a simple example of it, right? When the software first came out, we would go scan the service tag of Dell computers, and we would show it because you would have to go to Dell.com and enter the service code or call somebody else and mention the service code. And we saw that people really liked the feature, and then we paid attention to realize if we just did one click, we could drop you on Dell's side with the service tag pre-populated so you could get all the drivers you want. If you just pay attention and you talk to people, you just go, that little thing makes their life so much simpler. So what can we do? And so we take that kind of approach, and so it's not like we've already got everything figured out. A lot of it's just kind of fast-following what people want, and they kind of show us the way.
So when you first started building this and now, is this all hand-rolled? Did you guys hand-code your community? Did you buy something off the shelf and then modify the hell out of it? Like, especially when you were starting out, like, where did the code originally come from?
When we started off, this was about 2006, 2007, and community platforms weren't as prevalent. I mean, there were some. They just weren't as prevalent or as full-featured as they are today. And then the other thing we wanted to do was build a community platform that was customized for the IT use case and tailored to the application as well. And so what we ended up doing was taking a few open source components and building on top of it. So there was a forum called our forum. We used that. Now there's just traces of it because we kind of added on so much to it. A big part that kind of influenced the decision was we wanted to use the community as part of the workflow. So what I mean by that is, like, you're in the app and the app is telling you, hey, this Windows event has taken place. And, well, the standard kind of thing an IT person does is then they take up the error code, they go into Google, search for what other people saying. And so we just kind of connected it to the community. So you click on it, it drops you into the community, and you can see how other people have rated the severity of the error. And so they can say, oh, this is fine, just ignore it, here's a solution for it, here are the kinds of associated environmental messages associated with it. And so that kind of stuff just simplifies people's lives. And so we tried to make the community help the app make the user experience better. So that's kind of how we thought about it.
That's interesting. So then, so we started talking about the community. Then, like I've been surprised here, as I've said. You got like your IT staff is actually small. You got like eight people, 9 people in IT, but then like your marketing staff is like 60 people. So one of the things, especially when you're on the outside, you don't really realize what size groups are. so a lot of times when people try to start a community, especially one to be profitable, it's one person. Like I tried to start a community and it was doing really well until I started getting hammered by a massive spam attack.
Right.
Basically, it was, well, I can either do the work that gets me paid or I can figure out how to stop this. And basically, then the community got done. Like for your staff, like how many staff do you have to build and run the community, basically?
So the core community team that works on community-related features, and a lot of it, honestly, is just supporting existing features and fixing them and stuff like that. New features is about 4 developers and 1 UX person.
Okay.
And then on the community management side, we have about 3 people who help in the community management, full-time staff.
Okay.
But to support a community of millions, you can't do that. And so honestly, it's done by the community.
Yeah.
A lot of it's community members pitching in and saying, flagging this as being spam and letting us know about it, so we can't be everywhere, so they do that. And then another big portion of it is volunteer moderators who go out and help police the community. And so if they see a spammer, they help delete that stuff, notify us, work with us to make it possible. It's clearly not possible by just having people on staff. I never think of community as something Spiceworks does.
Yeah.
It's a co-creation of us and our users. I think all of Spiceworks is like that, but more distinctly more distinctly the community is a co-creation, because without the people in the community, it's just a bunch of bits. There's tons of ways to post a new question, respond to answers, and get notifications. That problem's been solved 1,000,000 times, and will be solved another 1,000,000 times because people will think they can do it better.
Yeah.
But those don't matter. What matters is the people in the community.
Okay.
That's the connection that makes people come back. That's the connection that actually makes it interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Now, do you have any algorithms, or how do you find out, that's a big thing in the YouTube world, is you have the trolls, or you have the people that just try to make trouble. They try to hack around things, just to screw with people. Do you have any special algorithms? Is there some special open source community algorithm to show you who a troll is, or anybody purposely trying to screw with your system?
Oh, I think one way of thinking about it is that community online is just no different than community offline. It's people, right?
Yeah.
And so how does this work in normal society? You build trust and you build relationships.
Yeah.
And so in the Spiceworks community, we worked off of a system that was a little bit reputation based.
Okay.
So as you participated in the community, you got points. And as you got more points, you went up what we call the pepper levels, which is basically Scoville scale, starts with Demento, goes up to Habanero, and stuff like Mace. And what this does is it just shows how long of a relationship you've had with the community.
Okay.
Are you a new guy who just popped in yesterday and never posted? Or are you a guy who's been posting consistently for a while?
Yeah.
And that shows up as a little tag on everybody's kind of avatar when they're posting in the community. And so it gives you a clue of the person who's posting. Is that a new person who just showed up? A throwaway account that's come here to kind of mess with the poster? Or is it somebody who's been here? And I'm not saying that guarantees that there's not going to be rough interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that helps a lot because you just get a sense of the other people. And you're building a sense of I haven't really interacted with him in this forum, but he's at a certain level, which means he's probably been around for a while.
Yeah.
So you start to weigh the opinions differently. I think in the end of the day, that's probably a better solution.
Yeah.
At one point, we even tried a Bayesian filter to catch spam in the community.
Yeah.
And what we found was that the kind of spam we were getting wasn't, buy this, male enhancement drug or buy this pharmaceutical or whatever.
Yeah.
It was more spam that was maybe, tailored but not wanted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the algorithm didn't quite work. And so we've kind of reverted back to more about reputation and stuff like that. So if you're a new user, you have to jump through a few more hurdles if you're posting a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're an existing user, you have fewer of those hurdles. And our goal is to make sure that most people don't hit those hurdles. And the people who do, is more often than not, actually should be hitting those hurdles. So I think the best systems will be those that don't affect the most people, but they're there, so it's a safety net, so something that doesn't go out for banned. Somebody doesn't show up and post 1,000,000 things, and you're just okay, there's at least some sort of a safety check, safety valve system that says, you've posted a lot. Stuff like that.
So that's your people. What can you give us an idea of what the back-end infrastructure looks like? So you got 5 million. So what are the stats now? How many users do you have, and how many interactions per day?
We have about 3 million registered users, a little shy of that, and we every month about 5 million people come to the Spiceworks network. They're using the app, they're using the community.
Okay.
And we do tons of posts and interaction within that. Everything's obviously, there's a whole scale to it. And as in most communities, like you we were talking earlier, most people lurk, right? So vast majority of people are just reading, learning, and then interacting in small ways, like they may spice something up. And then some people are responding, and a fewer portion of people are actually creating new posts and stuff like that. And so that's kind of how it all kind of works out.
And so what kind of physical infrastructure supports this? Like how many servers, like what kind of databases are you running, if you can say?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to my level of knowledge. Mostly Francis is the mastermind behind it, along with Chris and the IT team. We run on Ruby on Rails, and we recently moved to JRuby. That's our backend infrastructure. That's what we use. Ruby is what we use throughout the company, and that's no different here. A lot of this is reading, so we've got a lot of caching. We use Redis to kind of cache and display stuff. So we use those kinds of technologies to make that scale better. Our database is Postgres, standard relational database. Although in pockets we're starting to experiment with lots of different kinds of technologies. And we even have, as we build out new services, they're less the monolithic, they're actually broken on the separate services that can be hosted on Amazon or wherever we want it. And so that gives us more flexibility as we go further and the application becomes bigger and bigger. Because the community of Spiceworks.com is pretty large, because there's obviously the community side that most people see, but there's a lot of back-end functionality as well. There's ad serving infrastructure, there's reporting infrastructure, there's management infrastructure. So there's a huge iceberg underneath all that stuff.
So I mean, like, how many servers would you estimate power the community?
I don't know for sure. I think it's 6 really beefy servers that we have. 6 that do most of the work. But that doesn't account any of the database stuff. And those are just front-end servers, I believe. And then we've got a whole bunch of back-end processing stuff. We send a lot of emails because we've got notifications for whenever something happens. I'm not counting all of that, but I believe it's 6 front-end servers with a lot more.
So question, especially since you're dealing with a community, is the whole concept of cloud versus local. And so like with cloud, not necessarily, we're talking about like Amazon Web Services or Azure, not necessarily your server in a co-location facility. Do you have any thoughts or concerns one way or the other? Because a lot of people are moving everything to the cloud. They think it's great, and a lot of old timers are scared to death of the cloud. Like when you think about your operations in the community, when you think of the cloud, are you worried about it at all? Is there anything?
Are you asking from a lens of I'm a business owner who owns a product that's now served from the cloud, like community is, or are you asking more from generally as an IT?
From both. So as the business person that's responsible for the community, and also just the underlying as a technical person that would be responsible for the community.
Well, I think first is like the cloud is quite the term, because it's a cool term that now gets all of this kind of marketing and stuff associated with it. So something that was just basically software as a service or a application service hosted application provider now gets bundled as cloud. Without any elasticity, without any of that kind of stuff, the cloud is supposed to give you. So a little bit of that is just the marketing label. So we obviously co-locate our servers, and I don't know why I said obviously. I don't know, maybe it came up in the discussion before, but we co-locate our servers, and then the question is should some portions of it be on a more of a cloud infrastructure so they scale? Yeah, because I think that makes a lot of sense. It doesn't have to be a public cloud. It can also be we co-locate a whole bunch of servers and use private hybrid cloud kind of stuff, and just do elasticity across those servers. So that from a technology perspective, slam dunk, you just do it. Now the bigger question is whose cloud do you use, all that kind of stuff. That gets into more tricky stuff. And as a general IT person, it can get complicated, especially as you cross international boundaries. If you're somebody in Europe and you've got certain policies about data, you do no business with the U.S. and you've got a relationship with a hosting provider in the U.S., you got to make sure that you're not under the subpoena laws of the U.S. So I think a lot of policy stuff is going to catch up to make this possible. I think it's going to be driven by the cloud hosting providers because they want that business in Europe, and if they don't have a way to kind of provide that peace of mind to their customers, they'll have challenges. And so I suspect a lot of this will get figured out. with any new technology or any new way of using technology, the first thing is you go out, the technologists go out and they try a whole bunch of stuff, and some of them make it, some of them don't, and then when it succeeds, a lot of other policy stuff has to change. The same has been true in DRM. When the ability to share music or any sort of stuff online first happened, you just had everybody throwing a whole bunch of stuff up online. Take the YouTube case, right? YouTube came on and everybody started putting Daily Show clips on YouTube. Viacom went and sued Google. Today, Viacom and Google are the best partners. They rent movies on YouTube, they do all this kind of stuff. They reached a point where they were comfortable with automatic digital rights management, making sure copyright stuff got processed properly under DMCA. And now, just this last week, they finally settled a lawsuit that was started all those years ago. And so I think with any new technology, there's going to be chaos and churn. And I think that's the fun of being in technology, is this like jostling and stuff. It's like, oh my God, that technology does what? I love this example of the struggle with online video right now. I'm kind of rambling all over the place, but I find it interesting. With online video, where it's like people go to something like a Netflix, and there's just like all of these movies you can see, but none you want to see. And there's even a joke about how Netflix should have a $5.99 browsing plan, where all you do is browse the videos and never watch anything, because there's not the selection, because the media players, the media providers don't want to provide access to unlimited watching. And so there was a company in California that rented these warehouses and had all these DVD players, and every time you wanted a movie, a robot went and took the DVD, dropped it in the thing, and you got to see it. And they were trying to circumvent this whole online media thing by saying, well, you only get to watch your rental DVD, it just happens to be a remote DVD. That's kind of the exciting part of tech. It's just like there's policy, there is what makes sense from a social perspective, and it just kind of makes it all messy. There's no right answer. We just figured it out.
Well, with the cloud, since you are part of the community, I understand that this probably won't affect most of the rest of the company. But with the NSA and all that hubbub, a lot of countries have really been pushing for localized data. So if you're a German citizen and you create an account, that data is supposed to reside in Germany. Now I know obviously you're not Facebook, you're not Google Plus, you're not collecting an insane amount of information. But does that affect you guys? Because you are still collecting some kind of personal information about the users.
On the community front, basically, there's the 99% of the community is public, right? It's basically, you post a question, you want everybody to see it. That's the whole idea of having a community presence. We're more like Twitter in that way, where you go on and you post. You want everybody to know what this problem you're having and get answers from it. You have some sections where you do private messages, so you go, hey, I saw that you have this problem. Can you send me this, the version of the software you use and stuff like that. So we do have that. We do have to follow local laws. So for example, in Europe, we have to detect somebody's from UK and kind of show them, we use cookies, here's our cookie policy, dismiss this. We kind of have to do that. So we try to make it more localized, so we kind of follow the laws that make sense for our users in those countries. And we have also presence in the UK and things like that. So we do those kinds of things. So in general, I'd say from a community perspective, since we're more focused on being a public community, everything's open, there's less maybe of those specific problems. But I do think that as policy catches up and there are going to be questions about it and stuff like that, and if it makes sense, we'll have to do what our users want. I think the first litmus test is what do our users want, and then make sure we do that.
So with the infrastructure, we're talking to Chris, and you guys have a truly impressive refresh cycle. Like a refresh cycle that's, I think most techs would almost die for, like a year to a year and a half now on your servers. Do you, from your position, notice any difference for that? I mean, is there, like, especially if you just have 6 front-end servers, is there a reason from your side that you're pushing for that, or is it just kind of one of those things?
I think all of these decisions are driven by the end user experience.
Okay.
So about a year or two ago, maybe a little longer than that, Francis started taking over the infrastructure stuff.
Yeah.
We put monitoring in place. We started to see our users' experience of the site,
Okay.
and it wasn't good.
Was it?
And we were like, we can't do this. We have to scale with it.
Uh-huh.
And so since that time, they've been making decisions and changing different things to make sure we provide a superior experience when people come to the community.
Uh-huh.
And so some of that's dictated, hey, we need to have a refresh of these servers to do it this way. Some of it has also meant that now for disaster recovery, what kind of options we want. So a lot of it's driven by that user experience, because if that user experience isn't great, it doesn't really matter whether we have a 1-year cycle or a 5-year cycle. That kind of drives it. So that's usually how we think about most things here.
Okay. And then, like for running a community, back in the old days with technology, it was really nice. You go to college, you get your degree, or you get your MCSE, your CCNA, and that was basically it. You knew what you needed to know. But now we have things like communities. Are there any special skills, like if somebody wanted to go out and develop their own 3 million person community? Is there something like any languages or technologies that really make it work that they should know about?
That's an interesting question. I'll give you a long answer, I think. Because the most important thing is, what is the outcome you're trying to produce? I think that matters a lot. So when you first started having people go online and do communities, it was about how do you post and have 3 or 4 people, which is fine, right? And then, there were a million different platforms for it. From one person writing and publishing out to lots of people, like a WordPress, to lots of community software platforms, Drupal, all of these, like PHP, BB, there's just tons of these kinds of platforms. The next wave came around specific objects, right? So a lot of communities then became about objects that you participate around. So Flickr is a community that's about photos as a centerpiece of the object. And what you do with the object is you share it, you view it, you comment on it, you create sets on it, that kind of stuff. Then you go to other communities that are like SoundCloud or something like that. That's about audio. YouTube's a community around video. And so the next wave became, we have objects that are not just conversations and discussions around it. And so that became even more intricate. Now you have all these platforms that let you do video communities and audio communities. And, you don't really have to go code anything, it just happens. So my kind of discussion, the reason I say all that is because if you're trying to create a community around just talking, well, chances are there's already community software for it. If you're trying to create a community around objects that are well understood, like audio and those kinds of things, they probably already exist. Maybe you're like, you want to share CAD drawings and have this cool community where you can interact on CAD drawings and do those kinds of things. I think there's one, but if not, maybe that's a great place to do it. So there's going to be a lot of vertical niches. That's where people will interact on these objects. And if that doesn't exist and you need to create it, then you need to pick the technology. And as far as the technology needed for it, I don't think it's that different than any sort of scalable platform technology. So anything that has potential to scale, Java is obviously there, Go now, there's a whole bunch of different platforms that do that. Another factor is going to be any sort of domain-specific stuff that you need to do. Anything you need that is, if you're doing CAD stuff, maybe there's a way to kind of run the simulation online, right when you're doing the community stuff. What do you need for that? Those kinds of questions get asked. So that's on, if you're trying to build a community platform, those kinds of questions. The next level up is, I would say, this isn't so much about technology, it's about how you think about the process of developing and the process of having interaction. One of the big things in the last couple of years has been gamification. It's around psychology of workflows. Some people call it delight. Some people call it, there's another term for it that escapes me. But we used to start off in a world where getting something automated was a big deal. We were happy to take these punch cards, punch them out, go wait in line and submit it so somebody could do the calculation for us. And then we were so ecstatic when somebody gave us a big bulky computer that sat on our desk and we could write the magic incantations that allowed it to do this stuff. Now we have so many options of it. Now, how is the technology anticipating our needs and giving us what we want? And that's why when you go into Google and you type in this mathematical equation and it solves it right there, and you're just like, wow. It just kind of figured out that I was trying to get an answer to this and it just did it for me. And so I think that's what's happening is technology is fitting itself to our workflows. And so as you think about the new platforms you build, that I think is a very big component, especially if you're on the user side. It's thinking about what is the problem users are trying to solve, make it easier for them. Don't make them learn a new thing. They don't have to adapt themselves to you, the technology adapts itself to you, to the person. The one caveat on this is that there's a lot of now attention on data science and big data and those kinds of things, because there's just so much more data than we knew what to do with. And so there it's still very much about mathematical modeling. How do you figure out what's the best kind of next item to show a user, those kinds of things come in. And I think that's another fascinating space, and I think a lot of what would shake down just with any new technology. There's all this thing that, oh, the machine knows everything. And to those kinds of things, I have this anecdote I remember from years ago. There was some German or maybe some European car company that built this completely computerized supply chain. So all the way from dealers all the way to the factory was all computerized. So whenever that moved, the computer decided we got to produce more of these cars because it's selling, and it was just supposed to be the hyper efficient. Well, at some point somebody put in the inputs and they had this lime green car that looked awful. Nobody wanted to buy it. And so finally the marketing people said, you know what, we're done. Just drop the price, sell all these lime green cars. It's done, okay? But nobody told the computer. And the computer saw the spike in demand and a whole bunch of lime green cars got produced. And so a lot of this is just like, okay, that's great, technology is awesome. It's just like there always has to be interaction and feedback loops into the system, because you can trust the algorithm some, but you also have to kind of help it evolve and get smarter.
Oh, sure, that's funny. So with the community then, how do you find users? Because that's a big thing. Everybody wants to create the next community, and the question is, you've got to get that virtuous cycle going where you have enough people to ask questions, to answer questions, to get more people in. So what have you found is a good way to find users for the community? Is there anything special?
Well, I think it all goes back to solving a problem.
Okay.
So when Spiceworks got started, we were trying to build an IT community. I mean, IT guys were the first to go online. There were lots of communities and forums out there. We weren't coming up with something brand new. And so we spent a fair amount of time asking the question, well, what can we offer that's useful? Because we could just put up another forum with another, we can't just go tell people our reply box looks the coolest. I mean, that's not the reason why people come to communities. And what we saw was a lot of the communities around the time were very, fell into a couple of buckets. Like one was, they were very vertical focused. So if you were interested in Exchange, there were a few Exchange forums that were amazing. And if you're interested in BlackBerry stuff, which was very big back then, there were BlackBerry forums that were great for that. And you found people who worked at Ford Motor Company in that forum, and you found somebody who just, first set up their best server, right? They were just like the whole spectrum of people. And what would happen is that invariably the new SMB guy would come in and ask a question. The guy who works at Ford would be like, why are you asking this thing? You should know this. Or there's only one way to do it and it costs $10,000. How come you haven't done it? And the other thing was a lot of communities that focused on the best answer. It was just like, this is my question, this is the ultimate best answer, there's nothing else. And what we realized in the market that we were serving, we had IT people who in the morning were deciding what network security software to buy. In the evening they were helping somebody print from Word. And they had to do a whole bunch of different things. And so you're asking that person to make a decision on the next mobile computing platform or next print management solution. And they needed help. They want to know what other people did. And they didn't have the budget. They were not working at Ford or whichever big company that could afford those kinds of things. And so they wanted options, not prescriptions. And so we focused our community around that kind of a feel. We wanted people to come in and say, like, doing that network build is a lot about philosophy also, not just about there's only one right way to do this. So how do we enable that? How do we encourage those kinds of conversations? So some of it in the beginning was about encouraging those conversations. Other was about moderating to help make sure the conversations continue to go on. And I remember those threads where people would come in and say, hey, I'm trying to do this content filtering. What do you guys do? And the answers span everything from something like Nance Guardian, which is open source, and you had to plug it yourself, and Untangled to like expensive solutions and stuff like that. And just a plethora of options and people coming in and saying, well, I have 50 people, I have remote offices, this doesn't work, this works. That's what made the magic, right? So people were just like, oh, there are people like me in my shoes across the city, across the state, who've solved these problems before, who've done something like this. I want to connect with them. So our focus was those folks. And then in time, obviously, when you're there, you will ask technical questions, and you'll have one right answer, like this error code, here's a solution. But that became our focus. So what I'd say for any community, you kind of have to figure out, well, what brings people there? In our case, it was the Spiceworks app. And then what is the value of it? What are you talking about? What is the purpose of that community? The power of the internet is that because most people are online, you can form subgroups and subcommunities around any topic. But what is that core audience? Is that big enough? Are you talking about lime green cars and Poughkeepsie or something like that? Or are you talking something about that attracts enough people? So that determines a lot of it. And then the second thing is, what does activity even mean, right? It all depends on the value you provide to the system, right? If somebody out there finds value in the work you're doing, that's great. So it's a very broad open-ended. So hopefully that's interesting.
Have you found any good advertising venues? A lot of times when we build something, AdWords or Stumble Upon or Reddit or any of that. Have you found anything that's good for building a community that which is at least getting the advertising out there?
The thing about communities that's a little hard is that most people don't wake up in the morning and go, I want a community. They wake up and go, I need a help desk, man. This is terrible. I need a help desk. So for software solutions, it's usually a little bit simpler because the problem is known and they're looking for a solution. So that happens. But not a lot of people are searching for, I need a new IT community to join. That's typically not what happens. Most people are looking for answers.
Yeah.
That answers leads them into the right thing. And so I think nowadays the biggest thing is the search world, right? So people are out there going, I have this problem, I need a solution. They land in your community and they see the answer and they see this great set of people who are answering questions, taking the time, and then they go, oh, maybe I should kind of watch this community a little bit more. Read a little bit more. Maybe there's got a newsletter or something I can get from them so I can see what interesting topics are here. And then they get involved in posting, and that happens. A second aspect is referrals. A lot of this is about people telling other people, going, I love this community. I'm getting such good feedback here. You need to be in here. And so there, it's a combination of just asking your users to tell their friends, or it's social signals. So you're sharing stuff on Twitter or Facebook and saying, look at this cool answer I found. I think those are probably the biggest drivers for community that you can do. If you're building a very niche community, let's say for example, you want to build a community of property managers, right? Well, there might be a conference for property managers that you go to. There might be publications for property managers that you can go to get them to join. Those kinds of things probably exist. But again, there too, the big question is, what is the reason people want to join? Is it, usually it's for, they need some value. Usually what we find in IT world, getting answers.
Then, as you've built your community, you've got many, I hate to sound bad, but you have a lot of cute stuff with the community. We talked about that, if you look at Facebook, they have likes, and Twitter has their own vocabulary. You guys have your own vocabulary, so you have your Spiceworks, and you have all this spicy words.
Right.
Is that something that came about purposefully? Is that something that is very valuable? Is that something that, well, it's there, leave it, take it or leave it? Is because you notice that with a lot of brands now, as they're getting so involved and again coming up with their own vocabulary. So with you guys coming up with so much of your own vocabulary, how did that come about, and how important do you think it is for the community?
So I'll definitely answer the question, but first I'll talk about Spiceworks because that's a little bit different. Because we didn't sit here 8 years ago going, and on year 3 we will create an orange T-Rex, and that'll be the thing we do. What happened in the case of Spiceworks, I don't know if you've covered this in any of the other interviews, is we used to do all these fun contests in the community, and one of the contests was put the word spice on something, send us a picture, and if it's cool, we'll send you a T-shirt or something like that. And people were doing lots of different things, and one of our users, Andy Phelps, in the UK, had a little T-Rex cut out, and he put spice on it, and he called it Spiceworks. We're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And we just kind of said it was cool, and we went back to our work. And what he ended up doing was taking the little cutout and sending it to somebody else in the community. And I don't know if you know about Flat Stanley, the little kids thing, right? So it went from one person to another to another. Now it's kind of been around the world several times. Been to Australia 4 times. It's gone to Tel Aviv, it's gone to Jerusalem, and been on the Wailing Wall, and it's gone to like England so many times, and all over the world it's traveled. And people would just send this thing around, and they would send something to the next person who was hosting it, and then it had this whole ritual of taking the person to work, and so you got to see all these IT people's lives and where they were and stuff like that. And the community just started using Spiceworks in a lot of its thematic kind of conversations. And we were like, what are we talking about? If that's what people want to do, we'll just do that. And so then we just adopted Spiceworks, and it shows up in error messages here and there, and it shows up in those kinds of things, because it kind of adds to the little, laid back, fun vibe we have. So a lot of the stuff we do is kind of like that. So at one point, even with the word Spicehead, like you were asking me about that earlier, it's not like we sat down and said, okay, what's the right way to call people who use Spiceworks? And I think it started in the community. Someone was like, well, how do we call ourselves? So we said, all right, let's put up a poll and see what you guys want to call each other. And they said Spicehead, and we're like, okay. And so a lot of it's kind of driven out of that. And so it's just about what the community wants. We try to fast follow, and I wish I could say that it's just a grand master plan for most of these things, but you're just kind of organic. I think the other question you asked, which is like the value of Qt and those kinds of things, I think if you go out thinking I'm going to add Qt stuff, that's probably not necessarily going to yield the best results. You'll end up trying too hard. I think a better outcome is to have a philosophy of how you view it. And I think in the case of Spiceworks, this is how we are at the company. We're walking around like this, and we're not wearing suits and ties when we come to work. We talk to each other in an informal manner, and that's just our company culture. And so we don't have to think hard when we're in our community to talk a different way. It just flows a certain way. I think that's more about authenticity, but just like what you are. And I think in our case, that's kind of what most of this is. It's just it's just very casual. And some of the error messages that show up in the app, I had no idea until it went into production and we saw it. And our developers think like that and feel like that. They're doing a joke where if you use Spiceworks with like IE6, there's a little pop-up message that has an Office-based reference that says, yeah, we're going to have to ask you to change your browser, and it's not written in that kind of tone. And it's just like this fun thing that the developers just felt like, we can't support IE6, it's just, nothing would work because of this new app. So that kind of stuff just kind of, it's just there. It's not like a community that shows up and says, what percentage of Qt have we done this month, right? I mean, that just won't work for us.
So, kind of finishing this up a little bit. Now, one of the questions, I'm just curious from your point, being your position being vice president of products and being here for a while, is, the question for a lot of new people, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, is do they go to college, do they get certifications, do they go for experience? If somebody's trying to get into the tech world right now, what would you advise them as a decent route?
That's a great question. The challenging thing, I'll tell you honestly, is you are luckily or unluckily on a cusp. 10 years ago, it was very simple. You went to college because somebody wouldn't look at you if you didn't have a BS degree or computer science degree and stuff like that. Now there have been plenty of pioneers who've gone on the route and gotten jobs and been successful without getting into college, to the point now it's a joke where you have to drop out of college to start $1 billion company. And so you're on a cusp. There are plenty of places where you can get by just without a degree, just by the work you've done. And there are also places where they care about degrees, what you've done. So the real question is, do you know the particular place you're interested in and what you're trying to do? If it's web programming and a certain sort of thing, it's a lot about vocational, right? It's about having the experience. That's what matters. If you're trying to become a big data scientist, you probably need some math background. And so kind of use what you're trying to do to decide that. You're on a cusp, which means it's option, but also it also has a risk, which is you don't get the degree and then you want to be a big data scientist and you don't have the background for it. That could also happen. So it's one of those crossroads right now where with MOOCs coming online, all this kind of stuff, there's a lot you can learn without going to college. It's easy for somebody who's kind of gone to college and never thought of another option to go, no, you have to do it. And I think dinosaurs like me will pass away and there'll be a whole bunch of new people who come in who just think that it's all okay.
Yeah.
And so it just, when it's in the cusp, you just have to look at exactly what you're trying to do. And then, the important thing is that to follow your passion, right? Everything else, it's trite, but it's actually very true, is that will you'll end up making the right decision because of it.
And the final question, because it seems like all the higher ups of this company are known for different things. Like Greg is known for CrossFit. I didn't know CrossFit was a thing until I came to Austin. So apparently it's a big thing. So everybody says that I have to ask you about Zen, that you were very Zen. Does that come into play in the office, or is that just something that they say you were very calm?
It doesn't feel very calm in here. So maybe I'm just really good at portraying a sense of calm sereneness, because I don't think in my head that I'm anything very calm. I think a lot of it, I do have a meditation practice, and I am very interested in Zen, and I've been reading and thinking about that for 10 years. So it's to say that what I can say is that it has a very big impact on my life, or how I think about my life.
Yeah.
And work is a big part of my life, so it's going to be part of it.
Okay.
Like we were talking about, anything big that happens in your life,
Yeah.
it has a profound impact in all aspects of it, whether it's career stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, in the same way, the conceptually Zen or meditation, all those kinds of things, end up having an impact on my outlook on life. And work is a big part of my life, so this has an impact on that outlook. So it absolutely does.
I'm just curious, yes, because I was told you're very Zen. So that's basically about it. Do you have any of the final asking everybody for like the golden nugget of wisdom? If you were 20 years old right now, what you kind of wish somebody had told you that maybe that not everybody would think about? Is there anything that you would tell these guys?
Geez, heavy stuff. Things don't matter as much as they seem in the moment. I think at any given point in your life, you look at something and you go, this is it, this is the big thing, and this is going to be everything. And you look back in a couple of years and it'll be just a small little piece. It'll be an important piece of your life, but it too will pass. And that's true of whether you're trying to make a big decision, or whether you go to college or not, or whether you start the company or not. If you look at it from the perspective and you zoom up and you see the whole entirety of it, it's an interesting, fun part of your life, but it's not everything. So I think, so have fun, and don't worry about the decision of whether you do this or that. It'll all work itself out.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
See, that's what you get when you stop paying attention. Hold on, guys. Where are we? Oh no, lost me in the camera. Hey guys, so that was the interview with Tabrez Syed, basically the VP of Product Management here at Spiceworks. So we kind of talked about the stuff with the community and all that. Again, we've been having co-hosts this entire week. So this is Jeff. Oh, you just told me what the hell you're typing.
Gretler.
But your title. What's your title?
So, IT Ops Manager.
IT Ops.
Yeah.
But the cooler part is,
Yes.
it's not what you do now, but what did you used to do?
Yes, I'm a former professional wrestler.
And actually, because a lot of people say, professional, it's like, oh, that's cute, you did it for 3 months, but you did it for a while, right?
I did it for 6 years full time, and then those last couple of years when I was trying to wean myself off the drug of people yelling at you. Those 2 years.
The drug of people yelling at you.
Yes. Good things, bad things. In wrestling, no reaction is a bad reaction. So you want them either yelling or screaming. And I still get that now with users, yelling or screaming.
Yeah.
So now I prefer the silence. So yeah, it's all through the 90s. Yeah, pretty much.
So how did you transition? That's a weird job to transition from. How do you transition from wrestling to IT?
It's a very weird transition. So it was a very physical thing, and obviously in the 90s, and I wasn't a full-timer, I wasn't the guy that was on, we were wrestling on the weekends. It was like traveling with a circus. So basically, pull up stakes, you go to any town you want, and then you go to the next town. So, and that usually only happened on the weekends. So what do you do during the week? So I was working on a moving truck that whole time as well. So I figured, make some money, get some. So it was a physical job going into a physical job. Well, I had a really bad injury back in 90, 5-ish at the end, and I broke my arm, and just realized that it just took the 2 ways for me to make a living away, just like that, you know. So it's just like I need to start thinking non-physical work. So my brother was actually already going to school in Tampa Tech to get his associate's degree in computer engineering with an electronics twist in it. So I was like, well, let me go and try that, you know, do that. And we actually went in there and went to school together. And then it just like, well, my arm is actually good for keyboarding right now because it's kind of crooked. So it worked it perfect. And then once I did that, it just never went back. Just stayed in this field.
So, wow, so you've been doing it a while. Then, so you are, I got the joy of being with you with Control Alt Tech, your TV show here,
right,
and the IT Ambush.
Yes, fun stuff.
So, where did that come from? Was that your idea? Did you get shanghaied at, like, why is Chris not the host of it?
Well, Chris was
Oh yeah,
everything.
I passed the mantle.
Yes,
the mantle.
he did pass the mantle.
He's better at it.
Chris did it, obviously. You know, I would say it all the time. I mean, there's 8 people doing right now what Chris used to do by himself.
Wow,
So on top of the other stuff, they were pulling them too. So slowly, Chris started divvying the stuff out, and I don't mind being there and having that. So it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked to Andy about it before, and just about doing some video stuff, and they just kind of ran with it. So good stuff.
Yeah. So what is your day-to-day work here like then?
It's different, you know. Chris is slowly, again, like I was saying, transitioning and divvying apart. So I've been past a lot of the internal operations stuff. So it's still dealing with end users, but trying to be ahead of that. Like I came in just doing the Active Directory portion of it before, just server administration, and it just kind of leaks on. So I help, you know, I kind of flounder in the middle. I help with tickets too, with like Justin and Renato, and then I also work with Jeff on doing a lot of the server stuff. Like we're dealing with VPN issues right now, and wireless, setting up a lot of the wireless, printing, just all that kind of the internal operation for our large marketing and sales staff.
So as you guys should know, this is Chris, the director of IT here, and he's been having fun with the trolls.
YouTube.
It's YouTube, dude. So I got some questions here so far again. If I did not say it in the beginning, if you have a question, just type question in all uppercase letters, colon, and then whatever your question is, and we will try to answer it. Again, as you guys all think, I am egotistical and arrogant, and I think I know it all. I don't. That's why we have these other people here, and they can answer the questions too.
Some of us who might be egotistical and arrogant.
Just a coincidence.
Oh, this is a good one, especially in the startup world. I don't know if it trickles down to you guys. Ask about lean product or software development at Spiceworks. Does lean trickle down to you folks?
So, I guess it really depends on what they mean by lean.
Yeah.
If by lean you mean cheap.
No. You know the lean methodology?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, as long as they're not saying like as cheaply as possible, right? Actually, so our development org kind of shifts around a little bit. It does trickle back to me. It's not so much anymore, but especially when I was, it was a smaller group or when it was me by myself.
Yeah.
They kind of play in the agile area a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't have any like formal Scrum Masters or anything like that. Some of the groups do sprints.
Yeah.
We've set up some internal tooling to allow for Agile.
Yeah.
But as far as lean goes, not really down to us very much. No.
So, do you think you should, like a lot of people, and maybe it's just because it's public right now, a lot of people are getting very dogmatic on things like lean. Like there's lean, and there's one way to do lean, and if you do it a little bit different, you're not really doing lean.
We'll see, and that's the problem with a lot of these development methodologies, waterfall, lean, agile, or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially agile, because it was kind of developed in response to other methodologies.
Yeah.
But it was really developed to what fits in your organization that way. But then there are definitely a pretty vocal set of people who are like, if you're not doing Agile exactly this way, then you're not Agile. So, and I'm not a big dogma person, because one size does not fit all anywhere. So you develop your processes and your tooling around what is most efficient for your organization.
Do you find any good developer work on freelancing sites like Freelance or Elance? Are there better source for those freelancers who want to go to the freelancing path? I guess maybe not for you guys, but do you have any buddies that go down there?
We do. We have contractors who come in.
Oh, do you? Okay.
And especially in dev, those contractors are sole entity contractors, meaning they've got their own company or whatever that's set up, and then we 1099 them or whatever. And those are, we get those through word of mouth. Like a developer knows, we know that we need like a dude who's going to do Scala for 3 months or something like that, and one of our developers knows a guy who's really good at Scala who's available for contract. We don't particularly use like Elance or any of the freelancer sites, although in my non-Spiceworks life, which I do have one outside of here, which is developing software, so not that much life. We found people like on Odesk and Elance and things like that.
Yeah, so those seem to work for you.
Yeah, in fact, we've got one guy that we work with who is actually really good that we found through Odesk.
Really? Now, is there any special, because I went on to Odesk for like some content writers, and holy crap, there's a zillion and a half people. Like, how do you filter Odesk to actually
yeah, so I feel like I got lucky finding this guy.
Okay.
We did go through a couple of iterations, but this guy is really solid. And I think that is one of the problems with these freelance contractor type sites is it's difficult just by what the site provides as far as information about that particular person to figure out, number one, do they even know what they're doing? Or they just filled their Odesk profile or whatever with buzzwords, hoping to troll for an easy contract. The way I kind of look at it is if the rate that they're charging is absurd, either high or low, then they're not doing the game right there, which means that they may not be that great at what you need them to do.
So what about locally? Because I mean, you guys are all word of mouth here, and I do have to say, I mean, if Austin is unique for one thing, it seems to be that you all freaking know each other. So, so how do you break into that in Austin? If you're brand new, you're coming from Baltimore, and you say, "Hallelujah, I want to come to Austin."
So you get involved in all the little tech circles that are in Austin, the meetups. There's a couple of LinkedIn groups, but there's like DevOps Austin and then some other ones. But yeah, it's like when you go to a large university, you get involved in some sort of organization. Maybe not one that requires you to drink an entire keg of beer at once.
May or may not have happened.
I've not drunk an entire keg of beer, but I've been involved in that particular type of organization. It didn't really work out all that great. But it's you get involved in the scene. It'll probably be slow going for a little bit until you do get involved, but typically, as long as you're not a total butthole and you're good at what you do and you're involved, you'll get out there pretty quickly.
So if you already run an IT business or you're in IT, do you think it's a good idea to go back to college, university on the side and get a higher degree, or just focus on doing business full-time instead? So should you just
So you mean like a graduate degree?
I guess he's just saying you're already running an IT business. I don't know. Like if you're already working, do you work an extra 4 hours a day, or do you go back to college? Do you figure?
So yeah, my opinion on getting a college degree is that it's certainly not really going to hurt you unless you go into a mountain of debt to get an art history degree. And it'll open a lot more doors that are going to automatically slam in your face because let's just face it, recruiting HR departments, especially in larger organizations, get flooded with resumes, and probably one of the things that they'll immediately start tossing resumes is if it's lacking a degree. Now, if we're talking about a graduate degree, if you're already in the business and you're already running an org or you're already running your own business, how much is that MBA or that master's really going to help you?
Right.
Then it's probably going to turn into, well, it's because I really want to be CIO or CEO or something like that. Otherwise, it's going to be because I really am passionate about learning
Right.
finance.
Yeah. Unless it's going to help you get clients if you're already running a business, and I don't know if that's a prerequisite for your business. It's going to be dependent on the business.
So with the college degrees now, do they teach you things that are still relevant? Because that's one of the arguments is what you're learning in college is already 5 years old.
So, but here's the thing with college is it's not it's not a trade school. It's not an apprenticeship program. College really should be about expanding your horizons and teaching you the theory and fundamentals to give you a solid base upon which to actually develop your skills, which happens either on your free time outside of college or when you get into industry.
Yeah, it's definitely just for baseline now. It's not going to, said sometimes you'll get knocked out, because they need a reason to eliminate some resumes, right? So a lot of times it's not personal.
So with you guys, so do you just have your associates or do you have a bachelor's?
I have a bachelor's.
You have a bachelor's now? Do you have
I
a
have a bachelor's.
You have a bachelor's, yeah. That's right, you have 2 bachelors actually, right? You're the one. Were you the one? I get confused. I met some other people.
Yeah, I did a dual degree, but I ended up just minoring in the one. So I was
the one.
I was computer science and anthropology. Figure that one out.
Okay. Let's see here. Which type of database does Spiceworks use?
So the vast majority of our databases run on Postgres.
Okay.
We have a couple of SQL server databases for our internal tech support system.
Okay.
But for the most part, we are dependent upon Postgres.
Okay.
We also run some non-relational databases, the NoSQL, Redis. We tried Mongo for some things, but Mongo liked RAM.
Really? Because I heard Mongo was like that. I mean, it was scalable and blah blah. I mean, I thought it was supposed to be the bee's knees for new databases. Yeah. No.
You have to. Well, I mean, you have to have a use case for it.
Okay.
Like, I mean, they're not relational, so don't expect to be able to access your data in any kind of relational way.
Yeah.
It's we use like Redis and things strictly as key value stores, and to back into other services. And we use Lucene, which Elasticsearch sits on top of. Lucene is an indexing key value store kind of thing.
Okay.
And then, oh wait, I'm sorry. We do actually have one MySQL thing running, and that's for Puppet. Yeah, it's mainly Postgres.
So why Postgres? Out of all the databases out there, why do you choose Postgres?
Well, because when I start in October of 2007, they are running Postgres.
That'll do it.
So would you stick with it, like if you had to rebuild everything now?
Yeah, Postgres is extremely solid.
Really?
It's a very good database system.
Okay.
It does lack features that other systems have.
Yeah.
They just now brought in native replication with the 9x releases, and that's been progressively getting better.
Okay.
Prior to that, replication was either just straight up log shipping from a master to a standby, and the standby literally was a standby. You couldn't run queries against it.
Okay.
Or you had to go to a third-party tool like Sloaney or a couple of other ones. And it doesn't do multi-master, which is a trick when you start bringing up other data centers.
Yeah.
So, it's very solid. There are actually a lot of organizations that are moving from other database systems to Postgres.
Right.
In fact, there's one company that we've worked with on our Postgres stuff before. They actually have an enterprise offering of Postgres that they position for people moving off of Oracle onto Postgres.
It's not open source, is it?
Postgres?
Yeah.
No, it's definitely open source.
Oh, it is.
Oh
Open
yeah,
source.
very much so.
Okay.
But it, like with these other companies, Enterprise DB and Second Quadrant, they offer consulting services and like support services, and so we've used a couple of those to like set up, like when we first set up replication on 9.1.
Yeah.
You know, we had no idea, and the documents were like, oh, do this, do that, do that, and then it worked. No, it doesn't. But then, you know, the benefit there is, you know, they had a consultant and he was all remote. He set it up, but more importantly, documented everything that he did so that we could recreate all of that stuff.
Let's see here. As an employee, I think we talked about this before, but you always get the same question a couple times. Do you guys see ageism in general?
No.
No.
I know it occurs.
Yeah.
I personally don't see it now.
Yeah.
When I worked in larger organizations, I definitely saw people, especially when the larger organization was doing a reduction in force, I definitely saw people who were laid off, and the only thing that I could think of, it was age-based, but probably because they'd been in that position longer and were making more money than a younger
Yeah, that's
person.
why I always saw it.
So you have to be careful about the raises then.
Right.
You get a raise and you're
I'm
closer
good,
to
I don't
that.
need one. I'm good right now.
What advice do you guys give for the employee of tomorrow? Which field of tech will offer more jobs? I guess this goes back to if you were 22 and you have to pick something. What would you?
Well, when I was 22, the internet wasn't really a thing.
Right.
Yeah. But it's like everybody talks about like the Internet of Things. That's not really a job. It's
No,
that's
no,
a tech.
no.
It's like yes, that's
But
not
because of
producing
this
jobs.
explosion, you know, if you really, you know, cornered me and said pick 3 things that are going to be gigantic, big data.
Yeah.
So being able to either manage gigantic data warehouse systems, scalable data warehouse systems, or, you know, as a data analyst, being able to utilize the data within those warehousing systems. That's big now, and it's just going to get bigger. Networking is always going to be a thing.
Really think that's gonna stay?
Because even with cloud services,
Right.
Yeah.
you got to get to them. You got to get to them, man.
Need the entrance ramp to get on the highway. No doubt.
And then, you know, the whole DevOps, you know, operations mingling in with, you know, with development methodologies.
Yeah.
Infrastructure as code kind of stuff, like with configuration management systems and things like that. Cloud Stack, OpenStack, Eucalyptus, OpenShift, all these things. Those are going to be gigantic too, private and public cloud stuff.
Yes, storage is evolving, but it's
Yeah.
still storage. So if you start digging into storage, I think it'll always be safe. Network is evolving too, obviously. You go to IPv6 and it's going to be different.
Is anybody ever gonna go? I have a feeling like my kids will be like, next year, Dad, we're going to IPv6.
Yeah. I actually got asked yesterday if we wanted to IPv6 enable our sites. I was like, yeah, we'll do that tomorrow.
So you guys are really because I'm in my little room, my studio most of the time, and so you hear about IPv6, but you guys really are like don't care much about IPv6 at this point. Truly,
It's not that I don't care, I just kind of tend to or choose to ignore the reality of the situation right now.
Oh, okay.
Who's going to take that step? You know, it's like when they're standing in line in stripes, everybody's waiting for the other person to take that big step for it. I mean, it could be the best technology, you know, until it's implemented, it's nothing. It's
But even now, I mean, like, you know, Google and Facebook went IPv6, you know, a year, maybe 2 ago, but obviously they're IPv4 as well, so they're doing both.
right.
Yeah,
You know?
So.
It'll be interesting.
I know this one, but does Spiceworks have any plans to support other OSs other than Windows, Mac, Linux, etc.?
As far as running the Spiceworks application on them,
Yeah, I think so.
It's not currently roadmapped. A lot of it has to do with the fact that internally, for a lot of the Finder mechanisms, we depend pretty heavily upon WMI. WMI is going into deprecation from Microsoft. They're replacing it with WinRM, which kind of tightens the grip on you even more.
So what? I actually don't know these things. So what are these?
So WMI is Windows Management Interface.
Okay.
And so or instrumentation. And so what that does is it's a framework, and it's actually built upon an industry standard that Microsoft took and bent and made it their own thing.
Yeah.
But it allows management or inventory type systems to query against Windows devices using WMI query language to get low-level information about everything on that device.
Huh. Okay.
Now, and I'm probably going to get shot in the ass for even saying this publicly, but I just thought it was such a cool project. I'm like, oh, what happened? So we have a developer downstairs named Janusz.
Oh yeah, so it's
Dude is just like scary smart. And so every year, now we're doing it twice a year, we do this thing called Spiceworks.
Yeah.
And what that is we give the entire development organization basically a week. Go work on something that you think is valuable, cool, or whatever. You know, it's kind of it's sort of like the Google 20% time thing, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
Just go build something that ordinarily wouldn't be on our roadmap or we wouldn't have thought of or something like that. And a lot of really cool stuff comes out of that actually will make it into the product in one of our products in some way, shape, or form. Anyway, Janusz built a Linux-based version of Spiceworks that actually ran off of a USB stick.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Booted, ran,
Yeah.
self-configured, ported all the WMI stuff in, and away he goes.
Yeah.
They're like, how long did it take you to do that? Because it didn't take a week. He's like, no, you're right, it didn't take a week. They're like, well, how long did it take? He goes, oh, I just did it last weekend. Oh, okay, so it took, okay, good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Wow.
So I don't really know. I think one of the big things with like making a Linux version is that there's so many distributions available.
Yeah.
How would we'd have to, be like, okay, well, we only support Red Hat, at this version. Because we can't be like, okay, well, we support Red Hat, we support Debian, and we support Ubuntu, and we support Slackware, and we support this and that and everything. Because then we would just be consumed with always, and then with the way package management works with dependencies and everything, it would be so easy for somebody to break it because they did an out-of-band update for libc or something like that.
Okay.
And so, it gets a little complex. I've been working in my spare time, I keep saying in my spare time, on a Linux agent,
Yeah.
so that we can more accurately inventory Linux systems without necessarily having to open up SSH with the user and everything. And that's difficult because of the distribution, just the amount of distributions out there.
Well, have you ever thought about just creating like one virtual appliance? Because the interesting thing with you guys saying that you only support Windows is what you said. 80% of your computers are here at Mac, so it's actually kind of I don't know what you said. It's kind of ironic.
And a very good population of the 80% of Macs are in the dev organization. So our Windows application is actually developed on Mac.
Interesting.
But a lot of them do that for the POSIX environment, because the development tools in the POSIX environment are, just, in my mind, are far superior to the stuff in Windows, because effectively, in Windows, your development environment is going to be Visual Studio,
Yeah.
and then Notepad. So yeah, I just think it's you've got a lot more stuff at your disposal from that environment. We have some people who use Cygwin and stuff like that, but I personally don't like Cygwin. But yeah, as far as an appliance, we kind of toyed around with it for a little while, here and there. But again, then we own that support burden for maintaining that appliance.
Yeah.
And the way that we rev the application,
Yeah.
because in the last 4 days, I've put up 4 new builds of Spiceworks.
Yeah.
So we constantly, obviously it would still utilize the same distribution channel coming from us to update the Spiceworks installation, but at some point, you gotta go rev that virtual appliance again. It's a pretty big deal.
But I mean, do you guys feel? I mean, at least, I mean, I'm pretty blunt with it. I think Microsoft just blew their damn foot off with this whole Windows 8 8.1 deal.
Yeah, they do it every other release though. It's
the
every other release
Every
problem.
release.
Really?
You
So,
know?
so you think Windows 9 they'll
Yeah, well,
say mea
so
culpa
like
and
you
fix
know,
it and you guys will be
XP's
fine?
out there and everybody's digging XP and you know, and then they're like, hey, check out this new Vista thing, and that like, and then they're like, well, we just totally screwed that up. Let's everything that we messed up in Vista, let's fix that and call it Windows 7.
Yeah.
Right? So then they're like, oh, Windows 7, everybody's firmly entrenched in Windows 7, or we're still on XP, at least for another month. And they're like, hey, okay, now we got Windows 8, and hey, good news, everybody, we're totally changing the interface. Oh, you don't have a touchscreen? Not tough. Oh, you need the start button? No, we're not doing that anymore. You know, oh, and everything is in the App Store. Like, you're not Apple, stop that. So I'm kind of hoping that Windows 9 or whatever they call it will address those deficiencies. Personally, I gotta be careful. Microsoft's a client.
The best quote of the day.
I don't run Windows 8. I have no plans to run Windows 8.
Yeah.
At least on my stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's that.
Also, not a huge fan of Windows Server 2012 either.
Yeah. I like Server 2012. I didn't find it. I don't think they've ever done that bad a job with Server. They've never.
always been pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm. They started changing stuff, and it's like.
Well, they do have the weird Metro.
Yeah, it's like, why do you gotta put Metro on a server? Dude, stop that.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're doing core installation. That's fine. We're just gonna core. Hey, anybody know PowerShell? Crap.
So then, with you guys and things like deprecation and all that, so XP is supposed to die April 8th. For a company like this, are you guys still going to support Spiceworks on XP? Do you really have any option on the issue?
We'll still support finding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, here's the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
April 8th or whatever is going to come, and it's going to be April 9th. And everybody who was using XP on April 8th will still be using it on April 9th.
What about all the ATM machines, right? They're all developed on
Yeah,
XP.
yep.
Now the rumor was that they were all going to get together and have to pay like a premium to keep that XP support open just for them.
Mhm.
Really?
So-
And the government's already entered into an agreement with Microsoft to have specialized, support for them on XP going through.
No, I hadn't heard that.
So is it going to be dead, or just have the right money?
What do IT companies like Spiceworks consider when moving to new, better technologies in their products? So what gets you to upgrade?
It's getting a little tougher the bigger we get, right?
To upgrade, like, are we talking about internally?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
are we
well-
talking about the Spiceworks product, the application or whatever?
No, I'd say internally, like with your computers and your servers. And stuff.
Well, it goes back to that fit and purpose thing.
Yeah.
If there's a newer tech out there that's a good fit and it satisfies a purpose, we'll consider it and vet it and test it and maybe deploy it. Yeah, that's more on like the server side stuff. As far as the client stuff, we gotta go with the motion of the ocean, man.
Yeah.
So it's at some point I know it's gonna happen. All of our suppliers will be like, yeah, you can't really get Windows 7 on this anymore. Because currently we purchase downgrade rights.
Yeah.
To
You purchased that. You don't just have a volume license and use 7.
well, that's how it's with downgrade. So, the client stuff though, you do kind of get bottled up.
Well, the issue we're running into right now is we're running into a big back orders and discontinued items. So we're having to move to different models so then a new employee will look like it has, they have a newer laptop than somebody that's been here for a while and they're not due for a refresh for another year and they're like, well, that's a lot thinner and lighter than mine, So that's when it gets tricky. So now that's more of a people
Yeah, I'm not very good at politics, so I'm just like, no.
So their laptop refresh cycle is about 3 years, though. Yeah. So how does somebody sell stuff to you guys? Like, is Dell knock on the door and say, "Hey, buy our SAM"? No.
It's tricky. Trickiness.
No, I'm not a big, like, don't call me, I'll call you when I need something.
Yeah.
So we have a primary supplier for our client systems, network, software, stuff like that. Then we have a primary supplier for all of our enterprise systems, server storage, things like that, that we're actually currently moving away from to go into the one supplier for basically everything, except for stuff that can't be sourced to them or whatever.
One supplier to rule us all.
Yeah, so we're not big enough where I have to worry about single source issues, because this company we use probably isn't going out of business anytime soon. But yeah, it's really like I'll call them.
So how do you deal though, like especially with your stuff is expensive? I mean, if I'm going out and I'm going to buy 10 laptops for my little company, each laptop is $500,000. If I buy a bad one, who cares? When you start buying SANs and some of the, like I was in your server room and you talk about the price you guys are paying for things. Can you get testers or loaners or leasers? Can you play with it first to make sure it doesn't go after
Yep.
you can?
Yeah. Yep, definitely. We're pretty much all Cisco based as far as networking goes.
Okay.
The local Cisco office actually has a hands-on thing where I'll say, look, I'm interested in this, or I'm looking at doing this, or whatever, and then we can go up there and like look at it. They'll show it to me, or allow me to. Well, not really touch it. I can look at it. On glass. But and then we were looking at video encoders. Those are expensive, and what I said was like, look, send it to me, and we'll test it, and make sure that it actually works for what we're wanting to use it for.
Okay. Do you normally have to put down like a deposit or something for it? Or no, they just.
No,
I'm surprised. Yeah, we've got a lot of devices that, like you said, we're good for it. Let it play with it a little bit.
Now I noticed with Cisco's been getting into servers. How do you feel about Cisco?
I have a Cisco. We have some UTS stuff.
Yeah. How do you like them? I mean, are they better, worse?
Yeah, they're it's a server.
Now, going into your server room, is there anything down there that other people might know about that you found, like, especially being in your position, like, wow, that's actually a really cool device you might think about getting for your server room? Do you have any special, or can you say since you're part of Spiceworks?
No, I mean, stuff that what I've seen people kind of tend to overlook, like in their environmental monitoring stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Although, I mean, we have a lot of environmental monitoring.
We actually have.
I was like, oh look, you got all kinds of sensors in your end, yeah.
Like the flood sensors and the
Yeah.
the humidity and the temp and like multiple stuff. And whoever the rocket scientist was that put the temperature sensor on the back row on the hot aisle, I was like,
Yeah.
dude.
It's always running a little warm.
Yeah, that's why it's called the hot aisle. Most of our stuff is just, it's standard. We don't really have a lot of like exotic or like super cool, like, how did I ever live without this before stuff.
So especially being like an IT director, like with all those sensors and like a flood sensor, it's kind of up on a hill, I think.
Right.
Like, is any of that pushed on you by like the insurance companies, or is that just somebody got overzealous on buying sensors?
Well, no. That was, we should probably have that.
Yeah.
It's really, most of the stuff that we have is because we needed it.
Yeah.
We saw a deficiency, we saw a hole somewhere and needed to fill that. Now, there are some requirements that make the people who give us money feel better.
Yeah.
I think our investor prospectus stuff has like, every company has outlined their risks, what could cause you as an investor, your money to disappear.
Yeah.
And I think there's like 5 like line items with pretty good solid 3 or 4 paragraphs each, that basically boil down to if he screws up, then we're toast. So, I try to make sure that I don't screw up, number one, but that's going to happen. But try to have as much control stuff in place as possible, so that at least if there's going to be a screw up, we can kind of see it coming.
Yeah.
So, or when it happens, we're not surprised by it the next day, like, oh, the whole server room shut down.
Yeah.
So with you being the IT director, like since you guys did just get 57 million in funding, do you ever get dragged into those conversations? Do you ever have to shake hands with the VCs and prove to them you're not going to burn the whole thing down? Because theoretically, you're one of the few people that really could just the business.
Yeah. I could. I'd probably have to leave the country. Go hide out with Snowden in Moscow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this last round, I actually did end up doing a lot of work with Goldman. A lot of it was due diligence stuff, just them making sure that we were doing things the way they should be done.
Oh, with backup systems, we keep getting into arguments in my community. Do you guys use tape? What do you back up to anymore?
We're pretty much all disk-based.
Yeah. It is disk-based. Now, I hear a lot of people, and I would disagree, but again, maybe I'm wrong. They say that discs are not permanent media, that somehow tape is permanent media and discs are not. Am I wrong?
Well, so what is your definition of permanence?
Right.
It's like there was this thing last week or whatever where this Sony and somebody else came out with this optical media that has like 20 times the density of Blu-ray, and the life on it is 50 years or 100 years. Like, okay, good, but in 50 years, and somebody's like, oh, we got to pull that data from 2014. Like, well, I've got the disc right here. What is that? I don't know, but it's the disc with all the data.
That's
well,
right.
What do we put it into? I don't know, but here it is. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're right. Discs are not a permanent thing, but we actually have archiving systems that will archive off to eSATA,
Okay.
and then you pull those discs out and you put them into your vault area or whatever, and that's.
Yeah, I think multiple locations is the true permanent, just I put it on 2 discs. It's like Chris said, I worked for a hedge fund and it was the same thing. We had to keep data for a certain amount of time, but we moved on from the backup system they used. So they actually took the device, which is about took up half of a rack. And it's like, yeah, if we ever need to pull data from that tape, there's the device sitting in a corner, stuff on top of it. And I was just like, how is that going to run? It's just like, so if we get audited, we're supposed to somehow get that thing working again, put that tape in and hope that there's some kind of interface to it? It's like, yeah, it's not permanent. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, good luck finding a SCSI U320.
That's right.
Now, it's like,
Let's see here. OSs. Is that your new studio, Eli? No, this is my little cubbyhole in Spiceworks
yeah,
for
this
all
is
of.
it's actually technically a storage room.
yeah, that was. Oh, actually, this is good since you're in Austin. Do you think Google will be a major ISP in the future? Because they're coming to Austin, right?
Google Fiber.
So this is my opinion. It's not even a theory; it's an opinion.
Yeah.
Google introduced Google Fiber with no intention whatsoever of deploying it everywhere in the country.
Yeah.
Google developed Google Fiber as a prod to make other ISPs improve their networks and technology, which we're already seeing happen.
True.
Certain ISPs are all like, oh, well, yeah, look at you can totally get 500 megs now. Well, you said that wasn't, no, yeah, you can do it. Like, and so, okay, great.
It shook up everything in this town.
That's what I'm saying. Is like
billboards everywhere. Like,
one of our marketing people was just telling me how she had gotten a gig from one of the smaller providers here in town,
right?
And for literally $10 more a month than she was paying or whatever. So I think that Google did that as a prod because basically Google is predicated on people being able to get to their services.
Yeah.
So.
Well, with you guys in Austin seemed like the weird one for Google because didn't you have? I mean. Not a gig, but didn't you have reasonable internet? No, never mind. Okay.
My internet access at home sucks.
Yeah, really? Because I thought Austin had decent internet. No, that's wrong.
We have a lot of infrastructure. The companies that own the infrastructure may not be utilizing it to its full potential.
That is what's happening.
Okay. So when is Google deployed yet, or do you know when?
No, it's in soon.
How would that work like in a place like, is it going to get out to the suburb? Because Austin is very suburb.
Nobody's actually seen the map yet. And so they ran this thing, it was like, go, Google Fiber or whatever, and and then your location, and you're like, vote for your area. They're like, what?
Because that's interesting. Like,
I gotta believe though that the areas that they're gonna go into within Austin are gonna already have a dark fiber presence there. They're not gonna go ripping streets up and stringing fiber anywhere like that. Probably.
Da-da.
I don't know, let me call Sergey real quick.
If you have to imagine on an IT... Oh, okay. If you have to imagine an IT community, you think about Spiceworks. But what about for programmers? So, like Stack Overflow.
Yeah, Stack Overflow.
Is that like it? Is that the only one?
Yeah, it's pretty much what everybody uses. Then, there's a ton of Google groups dedicated to different programming languages and things like that. But I'd say that anytime I have any kind of question about something to be done in code, I don't think I ask these guys because that's pride messing with you. You Google it and like the first 4 pages are all Stack Overflow.
So with that, like going into the future, 5 years, I always ask you guys, if you were 22. But actually, interestingly enough, if you were the age you are now, like what are you guys doing to prepare for the next 5 years? Like what are you actually studying? Or
well, I'm stocking up a lot of bottled water and canned food. I just try to stay on top of current technology.
Yeah.
That's about the best that you can do.
That's all you can do.
Because if you try to anticipate, that's fine.
Yeah.
But what if you anticipate incorrectly and now you're not prepared for what actually happened?
What do you like focus? Like, are you focused on learning more Linux or more programming or scripting? Like, I really need to refine PowerShell or.
I think it's just more about just refreshing and update where your strong points already kind of are, and find those more specialities in there. I don't think going to a different direction, it gets tougher, because you already don't have that foundation. So just work with what you got. Like I said, keep it as current as you can with that.
Also, I don't think it's the most awesome idea to silo yourself into one particular niche or specialty. Because who knows what's going to happen later with that? Because how many, COBOL guys are running around like, I know COBOL. Well, do you know Ruby? No, I know COBOL.
So, but how do you guys figure, like for you being the IT director, how do you figure the new technologies, like how, whether it's MongoDB, like the database or the server type or any of that, do you just keep your ear to the ground and then think, I want to play with that? Is that?
Yeah, so that's how a lot of it starts. Is read a paper, find something on Reddit. It's like, I found this and this thing is awesome and whatever. And go look at it and you're like, I don't think that fits now, but maybe keep it in the back of my head for later on kind of thing.
So from when you see a technology that you think would be useful and it actually turns out to be useful, about how long does it take to actually put that into production, roughly?
I'm fairly conservative, especially with our production environments. We tend to go through, I'm looking, why do we have a propane tank sitting here?
I'm just spinning over the tank.
It's making me kind of
blowing
nervous.
up balloons.
Oh, is that a helium tank?
Helium, yeah.
Oh, we should totally do that later. I'm pretty conservative, so we do a pretty thorough vetting process in our internal verification and staging environments before we do anything into production. We just did a massive network refresh at our data center back around August, September. And when I say massive network refresh, we completely replaced the entire network. Which is kind of fun, as CEO put it. It's like changing the tires at 65 miles an hour. But it's a vetting process, so weeks to months.
Are you guys going to things like solid state drives? Solid state drives, all the big thing. You think are all your servers running?
A bunch of our client systems have SSDs in them. I haven't seen an IOPS deficiency on our server databases to justify the expense at this point. So we've been just fine with status, 10K and 15K. We just have a ton of spindles, which kind of helps with that. But yeah, for the most part, I haven't seen the IOPS IOPS screaming out at me saying, you're horribly deficient here. Let's go to a tier 0 or a full SSD based system.
I'm surprised, especially with all the databases. I think that would be great.
Yeah, well, so we profile our databases and figure out, are they read heavy, write heavy, and then we try to tune those as much as possible. And it turns out that our write heavy databases aren't, how to say this without sounding like an idiot. They're not going to cause things to stack up behind them if the writes aren't, right there, because we use a lot of queuing systems. And so what we'll do is anything that's got to be heavily written to a database, because our write-heavy database are actual independent databases on different database servers because of the different profiles. So we'll put those into a queuing system, and so the queuing system will just be insert as we go along. And if there's a failure or whatever, it just puts it into a retry. But the application itself can hand these things off to the queues and just continue on.
More. Let's see. I don't think Eli likes dancing all that much. No, I did not like dancing. Last night, you guys were like, dance! And I was just like, what the hell? Seriously?
Dance for us, Eli.
I've been here 5 days. You're not thinking.
I'm waiting for that GIF. You know it's coming.
It's GIF.
GIF. I know.
In fact, let's just put that out right now. It's GIF. Right? GIF is peanut butter.
Question: is it better to specialize in a skill or learn lots of different technologies for career diversity?
Where do you want to go? You want to be large enterprise IT guy? You're going to get shoved into a specialty. That's just going to happen. You interested in playing in the startup space? Breadth. So.
How many people that go into the startup space actually like it? You know what I'm saying? It is so cool and sexy. I just wonder if a lot of people get into it. And
I think in here in Austin, it seems like it's pretty. I mean, people seem to live in that market. That is just they all know each other from this is only my second one that I've been in, so it's new to me. But I feel like I'm way behind.
I think it's it really boils down to what kind of personality you have. If you're a person who's I gotta have 100% stability, which doesn't exist. I gotta have an illusion of 100% stability. I can only work in organizations that have at least $100 million in the bank. Then startup is not going to work for you at all. And if you're, especially in IT, and you go to a raw startup, and for me, my first year or so, our quarterly budget was literally $10,000. So if you're somebody who's going to be well, I have to have the latest EMC Isilon storage and all this, Nexus, Cisco Nexus networking equipment, then that's not going to work either. So.
I think if you're in a startup mindset, traveling packs, be 5 or 6 of you moving around. There seems to be strength in numbers.
So when you come to some place like Spiceworks, is this really, there's this idea that you go to a startup and it's risky, and Spiceworks is still called a startup. Is this really that risky?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No, not at all. In fact, when I first joined, it was very risky. Now it's, we have solid revenue, we have investment, we have 250 employees, we've signed long-term leases. It's nobody's really going to give you that kind of stuff if they think you're going to go poof tomorrow. So it's not risky now. In fact, I would say that Super Megacorp is riskier because they're always looking at bottom line. And
it's a good point.
And when you've got 20,000 employees or 30,000 employees, and finance comes back after doing an analysis and says, look, we got to cut 20% of OpEx. The fastest OpEx efficiency you can get is reduce headcount.
So with you guys going in, so this is your second, and how many startups have you been in? Oh, this is your first. Did you get normal paychecks going in? Because that's the whole thing with startups. They want to give you equity and not any cash as an IT person.
No, I like getting paid. No, actually, never ever go to a startup that only promises sweat equity. You need to get paid.
Yeah.
Unless you're
Pay my mortgage.
unless you're a founder,
Okay.
because founders are expected to shoulder, the burden, the risk.
Yeah.
Maybe not pay yourself or not pay yourself very well,
Yeah.
but then that's also why they get a ton of equity.
Yeah.
But if you're going in and you're a non-founder, you should get paid. And if they can't pay you, then it's probably not a viable company anyway.
Oops, we got some more. Let's see. Is Spiceworks' internal setup based on a Windows Active Directory domain controller setup?
Yeah, so we use Active Directory.
You do these Active Directories. Is it Windows?
Multiple domain controllers.
Yeah. Have you upgraded to 2000? You don't like 2012?
Our current functional level is 2008.
Okay.
We have 2012, but they're not Active Directory. They're not
Yeah.
domain controllers.
Okay.
They're like federation servers and things like that.
Is there a reason for that? Other than
Well, because they were built as federation services.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have AD on the federation server
yeah.
because it's exposed to the internet and other stuff.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
there's a reason you haven't upgraded your domain controllers to 12.
Well, it's like you said, I think just being conservative, making sure.
Yeah, I'll wait until like Service Pack 3 or so.
Not to screw everything
Or
up.
R2, R4.
So do you see like a lot of the fan base hates it? It's funny, they hate Apple, they hate Microsoft, they hate any big company. And so when I talk about Active Directory being the core of most of these companies, they keep bitching because basically that's what I say is if you want a company like this, you deploy Microsoft servers just cause basically. They're like, no, there's Linux Samba 4 and Open.
Yeah, let me know how that goes.
That's your. I mean, you just.
I think there's a lot more plate spinning if you do that. I mean,
Yeah,
this is,
well, because here's the deal, like, Samba 4 will in fact act as a domain controller and emulate, probably, like, I love the Samba guys, right? I've used Samba forever.
Yeah.
I used to be on their dev lists and everything, follow their stuff. But what are you really gaining by doing that unless you are a Samba expert, Samba 4 emulating domain controller expert? You're not. It's not been out long enough. Yeah, it's free as in beer, but your time has money, or has
it's your
cost.
time.
Yeah.
You spend a lot
So
more time.
so
doing
if you
stuff.
spend a month trying to get this thing up and running, how much did that cost you versus putting up 2 domain controllers with copies of Windows Server that are $800 a piece?
I'd be interested to see how that evolves. If it's like you said, is it going to stay that strong, or is there enough opportunity where people are going to just be so fed up with it that they're going to try to come up with something different that'll work in the back? But right now, it does just work. You put it in there, it does what it's supposed to do.
And then the other thing is, okay, so let's say you are an expert at configuring Samba 4 as a domain controller and you get it up and running. Now you need to go hire people to manage this. Where are you going to find those guys? They're like, well, I know Active Directory. Well, this is sort of like that, but there's no interface into it. It's command line, and if you put the wrong command in at the wrong time, you're going to destroy the whole thing. Be careful.
Good luck.
So do you foresee anything in the 5-year, 6-year mark that might be competitive to Active Directory? Kind of like
I don't see anybody even really trying right now.
Really, that's not even trying. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of companies that produce software for like managing Macs, but most of it is integration with Active Directory.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously there's OpenLDAP and things like that, but I don't really see a lot of companies that are like, we're totally going to go destroy Active Directory.
Yeah, who wants to take on that battle?
So you guys have mobile device management software, but I've heard, I haven't played with it. I guess there is some component, System Center, that you can actually muck around with mobile devices with Active Directory. Do you guys use that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No. The closest we get is Exchange has some basic mobile device management.
Yeah.
And that's probably where the System Center stuff comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't use SECM, so I don't really keep up with it very much.
Is there a reason? I thought it was supposed to be the B's and U's of.
I don't really have a need for it. I mean, we have imaging and deployment systems. We have all of our management is through group policy, and we just don't have this giant fleet of client systems out there that we got to keep a pulse on with something like SEC.
So how have you found? So 80% approximately of your client systems are Mac.
It's probably more like 60%, but yeah.
60.
That's snuck up.
That's
It really
Yeah, it did actually.
It is just like all of a sudden, it's like, wow, how did that happen? You know.
Yeah.
But for the most
It's
part,
weird because we buy them.
but the dev, I don't know. Maybe it's just because we hear from sales more. I don't know how that kind of evolved into that. But there's
Yeah,
just
we
weird-
actually only have one department that has an absolute prohibition on Mac. So.
There is a program.
Yeah.
So how does that work with your Active Directory setup then? I mean, if 60%.
So we utilize, so user management is done. So we join the Mac systems to the domain.
Okay. Yeah.
And so users are provisioned that way on the systems with their permissions.
And so it's through so Macs now support the Active
Yeah,
Directory.
Yeah,
there's
they'll join to
an
an AD
infrastructure
domain.
in there for printers and for logging in with your, obviously your password stuff is all goes across. I think right now the biggest thing is certain policy lockdowns.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at a system right now from a third party that will allow us to more granularly like emulate group policy kind of stuff
Yeah. Okay.
on the Macs.
So is there any group policy really for Macs, or do you just basically
So
get
that's
permissions?
where you have to get into these. Well, currently in our environment, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of a wild west out there.
And then what do you guys use for cloning or disk imaging?
So for a long time, we had Clonezilla with Clonezilla server set up.
Okay.
We're moving to a system called Fog right now.
Fog. Okay. Is that? I'd seen that a few years ago. Is that stable now?
It's better.
It's better. Okay. Is there a reason you're not going with the good old standard like Ghost or whatever?
Ghost doesn't exist anymore. Ghost is gone.
Where did Ghost go?
They killed it
When?
a long time ago, man.
Really?
Yeah, Symantec killed Ghost a long time ago.
Sad things,
Ghost is a ghost.
I like Ghost. Why the hell would they kill Ghost?
It was way too popular and people liked it.
No, I mean that's just like no, seriously. I mean that was actually.
Well, they
a good product.
obtained that, right? That wasn't theirs originally.
Yeah, they bought it, yeah.
Yeah.
They bought it.
Yeah, they tend to do that, but I think
Buy
what
it, put
happened
it on
was
the shelf.
because Windows 7, but even Vista and Macs all have these notions of creating a system image from within the operating system where you don't require. And then with Windows deployment services, the things that are like available to you if you own Windows Server, you've got Windows deployment services available to you, things like that. They probably are just like, what's the point? Why do we keep spending dollars on something that people have been pirating the hell out of for years anyway? So
That's probably right.
So I don't know. Are you allowed to say what antivirus you use?
nah, it'll piss off other clients.
Yeah. It's not.
We have gone through 3 different ones here, though.
That's true.
But the one we're on now, we've been with for a few years.
So why did you change? Why would you?
Because the one that we were on previous just started to suck. Central management is a big thing for us. The central management was just awful, and then it just started to suck. And then the one we were on before, which you never really had to deal with, had like no central management to it, but I only had like 30 systems. So I was fine with just like,
So what about the argument with Macs? Do you put something on your Macs?
not currently.
Really? Are you worried about it? Because I got to do a huge, horrible, nasty argument this morning about Macs and Windows and all that.
For sure.
Are you worried about that, or do you feel comfortable with not having antivirus on?
It just seems like that there's not a lot of still that many
Yeah.
stuff.
Don't say that. Do not say that. Like, viruses don't target Linux. And viruses don't target Macs.
Although I did
Well,
clean up some ads this morning on one.
I've always looked at AV as something to make you feel better about things.
Yeah.
Especially given the types of malware that are coming out. AV is pretty much always going to be signature based.
Yeah.
And so 0-day or things that are in stealth for so long and they're not even seen until the damage is done, AV doesn't do anything for you. We get so many misses on things, or I'm not saying us, but on in the industry.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's gonna catch stuff that's known,
Yeah.
but it's like, if you know.
It does seem like in the past 5 years there's been a lot more of the 0-day.
My philosophy is layered defense in depth.
Right.
So we do a lot of like content filtering, and we utilize services that are like, this is a known attack site, or this site has been flagged as carrying drive-bys or things like that. So the filtering services will try to keep up with that. And then, we have, multiple firewalls, and that even if there's a compromise, for the most part, it'll prevent that system from talking back to a CNC system or sending spam out or anything like that. And then we don't even do virus or malware remediation. Our remediation is a repave.
Yeah. Scorched the earth.
So do you guys use any like Barracudas, like the antivirus firewalls? Do you try?
So we have intrusion detection systems and firewalls, and they also have inspection systems on them that will, again, signature based. But
have you heard about the University of Waterloo? Do you
Canada?
I guess.
Yeah, Canada. Okay.
Do you hire co-op students for the summer?
I don't think we hire non-citizens.
Okay. Yeah,
You have to be eligible to work in the United States.
Spiceworks should switch from Exchange to Zimbra mail server.
We ran Zimbra for a while.
Really? Oh, there's the professional opinion.
No, and actually we use hosted Exchange, so we don't run our own Exchange servers. Well, we have Exchange servers internally, but they're purely for test and dev.
Really? For 250 people, you do
Yes,
hosted
hosted
Exchange?
Exchange. Yep. Because I don't see any value add because the amount of infrastructure I would have to put in place to support fully redundant and highly available Exchange, both in terms of
On-site.
CapEx and OpEx, because the math doesn't work at this point.
Really? So even because I tell them, 10, 20, 50 people, but 250, it's still cheaper because it's what, $5 a month per user, right? Ish.
I can't really talk about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. It's so funny talking to people that I guess.
Let's just say the math doesn't work in on-prem favor yet. But even when that equation starts to flip upside down, most likely what we'll do is we'll go to dedicated, but still in somebody else's data
Which is
center.
what, yeah. I mean, and knock on wood, for over 250 people internationally, I'm happy with the experience that we get from it. Like before, sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I had this tool. I want to dig a little deeper and try, but then you think about the times where it's just like all is well.
Yeah.
It's working overseas. It's working here. People get it wherever they want with less issues not coming into our building.
Dude, and I've managed Exchange before.
Yeah.
Oh, I deleted my entire inbox. Can you restore that from backup?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see how this works out.
Yeah. So with your kind of hosted Exchange, do they have like individual email recovery? Like if they delete an email, can you get that back for them?
Well, I'm not going to for an email.
So,
It just ain't gonna happen.
okay.
Even when I ran my own Exchange, oh, you deleted an email? Well, tough.
Yeah.
Ask them to send it back to you again. It's like, I'm not going through the entire restore exercise for an email.
Right.
Yeah, so we have the capability to get mailboxes back.
You do. And then, so, the big thing is once you start going to the hosted solution is hosted Exchange versus Google Premier Apps. Do you have any thoughts why you don't like Google, or is that, can't talk about it?
Their support gets a really bad rap.
Yeah.
And for me, email is business critical.
Yeah, okay.
There better be support behind it.
So like when you get hosted, if you can say hosted Exchange, like there's a lot of providers of hosted Exchange. You can get it directly from Microsoft or you can get it from smaller providers. Do you go directly from like the big guys or a smaller shop?
Well, I can say who we use because it's our MX record. You'll see it right there.
Yeah,
We use
okay.
Rackspace.
You use, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few core services that I believe that, until you get to that larger company,
Yeah.
like more than 500, certainly, 1,000. But, in the smaller space, you should not be running DNS, authoritative public DNS. You
Okay.
shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't probably be running your own data centers. You should be building and
No.
managing your own data centers, colo spaces, and more managed services, things like that. and really, your messaging communication systems. So, like, we still run our own internal PBXs.
Okay, yeah.
Because I'm not on board with the SIP stuff at this point.
What? SIP's old at this point.
I don't know. Don't ask me hard-hitting questions like that. Because I'm going to totally contradict myself. Because I want to have control over it. No. I don't know. It's just I like having the wires here, the PBX here,
Well, so do you use VoIP internally, or you're still using digital? Or?
So we moved off of a system which was pretty much 100% VoIP onto our current system, which through my own election is TDM right now. But we can, at any point, start going to VoIP.
So why would you go off of VoIP? That would not be.
The call quality on this other system sucked. It was awful. And I put a QoS in to the point where I even had a separate physical network just for VoIP, and it was still crap.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, well, it's probably just because that system was terrible.
Maybe.
See?
I mean, at this point, I thought VoIP was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Probably for our new facility, it'll be VoIP.
Yeah. All right. And the final question, since we are at the 2-hour mark, as an expert, how can a 14-year-old kid? What the hell? How can a 14-year-old kid hack a system that is created by a full team of brains? How can a 14-year-old kid have all that knowledge?
Or is he asking, like, how to go outside and play, kid? Or is he saying, how does that happen? Well, I mean, they're just, there's smart people everywhere, and, kids these days.
I think maybe that's it, that whole idea.
Like how can somebody...
Like, there's like 14-year-olds that are super, they sell their company for 32.
I think of it like the terrorist theory that you only have to be right once. I mean, I think as a job, you're there, and then you go do something else in life, where if you're a hobbyist type of thing, and you're just going to pound that thing all day and night around the clock, where eventually you have to have, if it's your job, you disconnect from it, but they're not going to stop. So somehow they'll just, you're getting outworked.
Yeah,
in that case.
And typically it's not like the lone 14-year-old kid who did this. He was assisting or on the periphery of a larger organized group, and it's the group that pulled it off, probably through multi-layer attacks via social engineering and direct attack on the infrastructure.
Yeah, okay. So it's a lot of work in a group.
Yes.
So that's about it. So you guys, the ending all these things, your golden nuggets. What are your golden nuggets for the day to give these folks about getting ahead in the world?
Agility.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't think you should ever really do that. Save and save often.
Save and save often. Where there you go. So that is the daily. Wow. Oh my God, this week has gone pretty quick. So it's Friday night.
It's a wrap.
Thank God. So this is the end of the week at Spiceworks. We've been here. We've talked to Scott Abel. We've talked to Greg. We've just talked with everybody in the world, and I'm absolutely exhausted. Just so you guys know, since some of you guys have asked, no, Spiceworks is not the big tuna. Hopefully they'll be the big salmon in the future. But no, they're not in fact the big tuna. I'm meeting with the big tuna tomorrow because I need to drive 6 hours after being exhausted. So meeting with the big tuna tomorrow. I will tell you guys a little bit about that on Monday when I get back into town. But with that, I think we will call it a day and see you guys 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. And then the week after that, we will be at Interop. And at some point, I'm just going to collapse somewhere. So we'll see you guys, or I will see you guys next week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Monday.